Thanks everyone for joining, and welcome to NBN's Data and Science Analytics Meetup. My name is Joshua Smith. I'm the Client Acquisition Lead here at NBN. So today we're joined by Karen Jean-Francois. Karen is an analytics consultant at Cardlytics and also Women in Data's podcast host and producer. So Karen's going to be presenting and discussing on her topic of invisible analysts. So sharing her experience and tips on how to be more visible and to get recognition you deserve as a data professional. Karen's presentation should last around 20 minutes with a 10 to 15 minute Q&A at the end, or as long as we want really. So if it goes over, it goes over, it's all good. So this is an interactive session, as you all know, regular attendees. The more questions you guys ask throughout the presentation, the more engaged the Q&A session will be. So please do feel free to ask questions in the Q&A box below, and we'll pick these up at the end. So as you can see, anyone who's not familiar, there's a chat box and a Q&A box. Use the Q&A box and I'll get back to you. And I'll annotate any questions at the end. I'll let Karen fully introduce herself. However, I'd like to add, I'm really excited to have Karen on board today and present on this topic. She's both an active practitioner and thought leader in the analytics and data science space, and has loads of practical insight on the topic today.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining, and apologies for the internet issue. I'm not sure what happened exactly, but I am back, and I am so pleased to be chatting about the invisible analyst today, and hopefully that's going to be a super useful content for you. I want to start by saying that really, when we grow up, we have a clear progression path. So everything is structured. And if you take the example of school, for example, you start at one grade, and then depending on your performance in exams, and you will know when the exams are, you're going to go up and up and up. And then that works as well at university. You always have this well-structured path that is basically given to you for your progression. And this appears in several parts of our life, even when we're having fun. If you take the example of video games, for example, there are different levels, and you have to go from win a level to get to the next one. And what happens is that some of us will start our career thinking that it will be the same, that we will have this clear progression path, and we just have to do this to progress to the next step. And I feel like this is a very naive way of seeing things, right? Mainly because we don't know, right? So what happens is we work hard, we put all our strength into producing great results, if you're an analyst, having the best analysis possible, and then we realize that very often we are path for progression. We don't feel like our work is being recognized, and it can be quite frustrating. So especially as analysts, I mean, what happens is we spend so much time coding and digging into the data, trying to find trends, that we tend to focus on that and think that this is the main part that's going to get us recognized for our work. And this is not the case. Hopefully, after today's presentation, you will know what will help you progress in your career, what will help you get more recognition, and what I want to say is being more visible. So Josh introduced me already, but I'm going to do just a quick one because I am not sure what he said. So I'm Karen, analytics manager at Cardlytics, analytics manager or consultant. So my job title really is analytics consultant, but I'm also a manager. So I like to be fancy and call myself an analytics manager. And for those who don't know who Cardlytics are, so Cardlytics, we do some card-linked marketing, so Cardlytics. And what we do is we enable advertisers to push cashback offers on bank digital channels, but also on open banking channels. An example of that is if you bank with Lloyds, for example, in the UK, you will get in your mobile app and you will have this hub where you will have loads of offers, and it says, oh, if you go spend at Sainsbury's, we will put you 5% back on your bank account. And that's what we do as a company. My role there is that I am responsible for everything that is publishers analytics. And a publisher is, I guess, a bank or an open banking channel, which is basically where we publish the offers. And what I'm doing with them is I help drive value through data. And I help their stakeholders understand how analytics can support their goals and business objectives and how we can get their customers to engage more with the program. I would say that what I like the most in my role is to be responsible for the development, so being career or personal development of my direct reports. On the side, as Josh said, I host and produce the Women in Data podcast, which is a podcast that aims at, I guess, bringing more transparency on careers in data, but also shedding some light on some amazing female role models, because we need more of that. So getting a bit of inspiration through all the amazing women who work in the field. And the most relevant part of who I am for today's presentation is that I am a reformed invisible analyst. And for years and many years, I used to be this invisible girl and then woman in the room. And it was so bad that my teachers at school could not hear me answering their questions at all. And when it comes to work, I was a complete ghost in meetings, thinking I was feeling uncomfortable answering questions, getting into the conversation, and I realized that this was really harmful to my career. So today I'm hoping to share with you my key learnings and how I managed to turn things around, really. What I would like to do is to make it a bit interactive, because I don't want to be the one speaking at my screen all the time. So I don't know if Josh, I don't know if the participants can unmute, but surely you can add comments in the chat, maybe annotate as well, and that would be great.
Yeah, totally. So we're there's a Q&A box, and we'll get anyone is welcome to ask questions throughout the presentation. So yeah, please do, guys.
Yeah. All right. Do you know if people can annotate as well? I have a slide where.
I'll be doing that for them, but they can type in, and I'll read out the questions. Yeah.
All right, we will do that then. All right, so let's get to it. So how I see the key talking points for today are going to be how being an invisible analyst impact your career. Then we are going to look into how to assess your situation, because everybody's situation is going to be different. And this is really using that knowledge of what your situation is to turn things around. And so the last part will be actions that you can take to increase your visibility. So how, obviously clicking on the wrong side, how being an invisible analyst impacts your career. I'm guessing that if you joined is because that at some point in your career, or even now, you felt like your work wasn't recognized, or you felt quite invisible. And I see this situation as being a terrible, terrible situation. It's really bad for your career, but also for your self-confidence. And the whole thing for me is like a curse and a vicious cycle. So when you're invisible, you feel like your contribution is not recognized. So you feel like you're doing great work, no one is noticing it, you are not being promoted, and you can see other people actually getting promoted before you. And sometimes you can feel like you would be more deserving and not understanding why this is happening. Then this means you will feel frustrated, underappreciated, and then, as I said, a very big hit on the self-confidence, like you are not good enough. I remember being in this position, and it was not a good position to be in at all. So the next step, so the next part of this cycle is that because you're feeling like you're underappreciated or that you're not good enough, you're not going to put yourself forwards for bigger or more interesting projects. So if you're feeling underappreciated, you're going to think, yeah, whatever, I'm going to put so many hours in there, but then no one is going to care. If you feel like you're not good enough, you're going to think, other people are going to do that better than me, so I'm going to leave it to them, which might not be the case. I have a few examples of myself probably being the best person to work on a project and letting other people do it because I was thinking my confidence level was really low. And then because you're not putting yourself forward, as they say, if you do not ask, you don't get. So you're not going to be put forward for projects, you're not going to work on projects. And that means you're just going to be stagnating and then go back to this point where your contribution is not recognized. This is the scary part where I would like people to annotate, but I don't know if this is possible. I would like to know, on a scale of not 1 to 10, but of not very, so it doesn't affect you, to you feel very uncomfortable, how uncomfortable does self-promotion makes you feel? And when I say self-promotion, it means being more visible, talking about your work, and making sure everybody is aware of what you do in the company. I don't know if you can annotate, if not, maybe in the chat.
Yeah, if people could put that in the chat, I could
yeah, in the chat, if you do 1 to 10, so 1 being I'm fine with self-promotion, and then 10 being I am very uncomfortable. That will be me maybe 4 years ago. I can see a few things.
Yeah.
There are a few 5. 7.5. That's a very precise number. Ooh, someone put 4. Okay, yeah, so most people are going towards very uncomfortable, but just being maybe a bit uncomfortable, not fully uncomfortable, which is great. It means you're in the right presentation. Oh, wow. Callum. Well done on feeling more comfortable with it now. All right, so we're going to look into now, and I want to say that you're not the only one. Obviously, you can see in the chat that there were a few people who put that they were not comfortable at all. Some people are comfortable now, but have not been comfortable in the past. And, depending on your situation, it's like the imposter syndrome, right? You can jump from feeling completely fine to just one small parameter changes, and then things go downhill. So having these tools to help you overcome the situation and turn things around is very important. On top of everything I spoke about, how this affects you, I do have a feeling that it's also very, let's say it doesn't make the pay gap, it doesn't help towards the pay gap, because there are surveys out there that show that women in particular feel much more uncomfortable than men when it comes to self-promotion and being visible in the office. And when we know that visibility weighs quite a lot in being promoted and being recognized in your work, we can definitely see that. I'm not saying this is the cause, but there is definitely a correlation there that could potentially have a role in that. So hopefully we can all be a bit more visible and try to turn things around. So let's look into how to turn things around. As I mentioned, we would look first into assessing your situation. And for me, like everything touching personal development or career development, it starts with a reflection. And I think that this has a lot to do with me being an introvert. And I'm sure that the introverts in the room will be pleased with that. Reflecting is very important. So what you're going to think about, the key point I looked into when I wanted to change my situation were what contributes to you being invisible. So there are different factors, and that's going to change for everybody. It could be that you started a new job and you don't have your network set in the company yet. Could be that you are very shy and you don't feel comfortable going out there talking about your achievement, talking about your work. It could be that you already had an imposter syndrome in the past and are just still in it and trying to get out of it. But it could also be a factor that doesn't, I guess, you cannot really impact it. So that would be, for example, if you work in an environment that is quite toxic, and in that case, you might want to get out of here. I don't know, but it would be very difficult to increase visibility if you don't have support from your peers. So hopefully it's not that, it's more around things that you can change yourself. The next thing is around thinking about what are your strengths, what you have achieved so far. So it could be in the last 2 years, in the last few months, really thinking about what you've done, what impact it's had, and how you can really translate that into business objectives or supporting business objectives. And the last one is what does it take to be recognized or promoted in your organization? You will see that I did not put anything here around areas of improvement. And that's because I don't believe it will help. And actually, I think it has the opposite effect. So because we work in a highly technical field, things move really fast. And I don't know for you, but as an analyst in the past, I've had this obsession around skills and getting up to date with the latest technology, knowing the latest in trend programming language. For those who have been in the field for a while, you will know that 10 years ago, you couldn't get a job if you didn't know how to code with SAS. And now no one talks about SAS anymore, or not as much as they used to. It's all about Python and all the no code to low code tools and all these things. So if you are in this position where you're playing this catch-up game, you're never going to feel confident or comfortable enough to talk about your achievement or increase your visibility, because all you will focus on is the places where you're lacking. So I'm not saying do not develop your skills. I'm saying when you think of visibility, put that in a different bubble of, I guess a different space in your mind, and focus on what you've achieved, what are your strengths, so you can definitely push that forward. And actually, something that really helped me in my progression was Vicky Pike, who is one of my mentors. And that's when she told me, Karen, you focus too much on your weaknesses. You should focus on your strength. And that was a definite game changer for me. So now that you have a bit of understanding of what kind of questions to ask yourself to assess your situation, let's look at how you can turn things around. So this is all about taking actions. And you're going to say, a few minutes ago, we were talking about how uncomfortable you feel about self-promotion and visibility and all these things. And quite a few of you were towards feeling uncomfortable. And now I'm going to tell you, hey, you have to be more visible. You have to do self-promotion. But something I've realized is that self-promotion is not about being arrogant. So you don't have to go and say, hey, look at me, I'm the best. Look at all the cool things I've been doing, and I've been doing this better than this person and this person. This is not what it's about. It's really about talking about your work, but also showing who you are. So authenticity has a big play into that. So I guess also when you look into visibility, if you're an introvert and you're thinking, oh, I don't want to put myself out there and show all the cool things I have, just so you know, and even for everybody who feels uncomfortable, we are privileged in the sense that people want to know about what we're doing. I mean, we've all seen the boom of data science and data analytics and all these companies racing to be more customer focused, more data centric and all these things, and putting data first. So people are curious. There is a big increase in the need for data literacy at the moment. People are always reading about data and they want to know. So you talking about your work is just going to make them even happier, and it's even going to help your organization in progressing towards their goal in data literacy. So how to increase your visibility? For me, it's 3 main areas. So the first one is about making yourself known internally. So internally as in your company, then contributing outside of your day-to-day, and then surrounding yourself with the right people. Let's go to the first one. So making yourself known internally. You always see I have 3 points for everything. And basically the first one some of you might be a bit scared, especially if you're very shy. But there is something here for everybody. I used to be very shy. I've mentioned it before. I am an introvert. I was able to change things by doing all the advice I'm going to give today. And it takes time, it takes practice. It's very draining in terms of energy. But if you want to progress, if you want to increase your visibility, and I will assume that you want to because you're listening to this talk today, this is what it takes. And obviously, I don't have the answers to everything, but I'm hoping that you can maybe mix and match or pick the ones that work best for you. And managers, if you're here also to support your team, there will also be some ideas that you can pick from here. So the first one, presenting at all staff meetings. This is a scary one, well, maybe now a bit less because everything is online, but standing in front of people, I can see the anxiety, but this is a great way to make yourself known. So you could either ask to co-host, and then that means you don't really have to present a big piece of work. It can just be co-hosting, introducing the next speaker, saying what you're going to talk about in that meeting. And it means that you're collaborating with the other person that's co-hosting with you on putting the deck together, ensuring that the content is coming. And generally, these people who are hosting all staff are quite senior. So it means that you're showing senior management that you can organize something, that you're reliable, dependable, and you can work with them and they will know you. Another thing you can talk about at all staff meetings is really a piece of work. And when you do that, so maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes max, I suggest that you focus on what was the problem you are trying to solve and what impact it had. Maybe talk a bit about how you did that, but without going into too much detail. So really staying high level, goal-oriented, and presenting your work this way. The next one is running company-wide workshops. This is one I like a lot. If you listen to some of the talks I've done before, I openly say that I did not set up for a career in data. I wanted to be a teacher, and running workshops is kind of a way for me to go back to, this need of teaching and sharing knowledge and doing all these things. And it works really well in today's world because most companies are running lunch and learn. People are keen to learn new skills. And I find it a great way to connect with people outside of your team with whom you wouldn't have spoken to otherwise. And technical workshops are quite good. I remember running a few years back JavaScript and HTML workshop where I had never done JavaScript before or HTML. I knew nothing about web development, but kept it simple enough so that people can build a small app that was quite satisfying to see that they were writing code and then it was translating in something visual. Excel workshops are a good one, but you can also, I guess, present something that has nothing to do with work. It can be something that you're very passionate about and that people can learn from that as well. And the last one is one for the introvert, which is creating a newsletter for your team. And this one has very great benefits because it means that you don't have to be standing in front of people talking. You're just writing things. And you are not only self-advocating. So it's not just about yourself, it's also about your team. And I think that's a big one for managers as well. So that helps increasing the visibility of the whole team within the company. At Cardlytics, we have a nice newsletter that we've implemented a bit over a year ago that's been quite successful. And what we use it for is to remind of best practices, talk about the newest product that we've put out there, talk about maybe mistakes that we've seen, increasing a bit of data literacy, reminding people that correlation doesn't mean causation, things like that, but also making more funny sometimes with silly things that happen to us, talking about team updates or birthdays, new babies and things like that. So it's not always about the work, it's about, who you are and all these things just to make yourself known a bit better. But while I've done all this and tried all this, what helped me the most about increase my visibility internally was producing a podcast. And I mean, if you're not an extrovert, this might sound crazy, but as an introvert, I felt like it was very helpful. It helped me have very deep conversations with people because my podcast is an interview format. So speaking with women who work in the field, creating some very deep relationship with them. And I hadn't realized how that would impact my visibility within the company. I hadn't done it for that reason, but this is definitely what helped me most. So if you feel like you could do something outside of work, I'm not saying producing a podcast, but maybe a blog or some social media posts or whatever you think that would work for you, I strongly advise, because the benefits are countless. So that's about increasing your visibility internally. Now contributing outside of your day-to-day, and I can hear you all saying, Karen, I'm already very busy. I do not have time for that. But as everything that touches progression, visibility, and all these things, if you want to do it, you're going to have to put some extra effort. So getting involved into wider projects, so being innovation projects, everything that is outside of your team and contribute to them, to, I guess, your company reaching their objectives is quite impactful, especially as you end up working with other teams as well. Supporting your manager's goals, it's a good one. So if you make your manager's life easier, they are going to be very thankful for that. And then the last one is joining a committee. And I guess nowadays there are companies doing quite a few committees out there. It could be social, it can be D&I, all these kind of things where you're interacting with people outside of your team. You will see, I guess, there is a theme here where it's all around interacting with people outside of your team. And that's because when you want to do visibility, when you want to increase your visibility, you can't limit yourself to your team. It has to be wider than that. So it has to be broader and company-wide if possible. So these are good ones as well. And I spoke recently with Natalia, who is the CTO at Zest Money. And what she was saying was that data scientists, so she leads big teams of data scientists, and she was saying that the biggest contribution of data scientists is not about being sat behind your computers writing codes and algorithms all day or fitting models and all these things. It's about going out there, speaking with stakeholders, trying to understand what problems they are trying to solve, what issues they have in their work, so, and then figuring out if there is something that you can help them with. So building solutions that are going to solve their problems, make their life easier, and all these things. So really, visibility, speaking with people, collaborating with other teams is a big theme in our roles. And the last one, surrounding yourself with the right people, and that's mentors, advocates, and decision makers, and all of them are going to have a different role. So mentors will help you through sharing their experience and giving you some perspective on your situation, on what you're trying to achieve, etc. And I know a lot of people are talking about mentors at the moment, and a question I have a lot is, how do I find a mentor? Because it makes people uncomfortable going and ask someone, oh, hey, can you be my mentor? And they get a no, because when you ask someone, can you be my mentor? Straight away they think, oh my God, I have to find 1 hour a week for who knows how long to dedicate to this person and support them. And a solution to that I found quite handy was in Shelley Archambault's book, which is called Unapologetically Ambitious. So the book is about loads of things, but she has this chapter where she talks about mentoring. And what she does is that she goes to someone. So she has these problems she's trying to solve, or these skills she wants to have. She goes to someone who she knows is either an expert or does it really well, and ask one question. And what she says is when you ask someone one question, they're happy to answer that one question. So they answer the question, she goes and implement it, try it out, learn from it, goes back to the person and says, hey, thank you again for helping me with that. This is what I tried. This is what happened. This is what I found out. What do you think, or what's the next step you would suggest I do? And basically like that, she's adopting mentors. And I found that pretty cool. Advocates boost your visibility when you're not around. So they're going to be the ones singing your praise when you're not in the room. And some results I find quite great for that. I don't know if you know about the Squiggly Career podcast. It's definitely my favorite podcast out there. And they have an episode where they talk about how to find career sponsors, which would be advocates. So sponsors, advocates, sometimes so there is a difference between sponsors and advocates, but I feel like this episode also helps you find advocates. And so it's the episode 215, if you want to check it out. And decision makers. So if you want to progress in your organization, and if your goal is to get promoted, visibility is not always about being promoted, but if your goal is to be promoted, you definitely want people who will make that decision to know what you're doing. So get to know them, get them to know you, and create strong relationships with them. And Alina Timofeeva talks about how she did that on the Women in Data podcast, and that was episode 41. And yeah, that's it for me for today. Do you have any questions? Oh, sorry. Before that, managers, I said there was something for you here, and hopefully you have a few tips from everything I've said. But I do believe that it is your responsibility to help your team being more visible and help your team members being more visible in the company. So work with them, help them grow, and show the great work that they're doing to others. And now it is all for me. So do you have any questions?
Thanks, Karen. That was awesome. Thank you very, very much for presenting there. Please do ask as much questions as you can. All the attendees. I'm just waiting out on some just now in the Q&A box, but I'll kick off because this is something that this topic, something that is close to how I work, and I'm more than happy to say I'm introverted in my approach, even in a kind of weird way. I'm happy to speak in front of people in person. This type of environment, the digital recording situation is, gives me the fear. So like you said, pushing yourself further and going out your comfort zone does in a way help. Eventually, at first it doesn't feel right, but then it does sort of gel at the end. But my question to you was, it's quite relevant in this sort of post-COVID remote working environment in regards to visibility in the office for an analyst. So working from home, like what impact do you think that will have on someone's visibility and their ability to influence as well too, stakeholders or managers, especially regarding that specific piece for influencing stakeholders? So do you think an analyst who works remotely 100% of the time would be a disadvantage when it comes to influencing and communicating the team that they work in?
This is a very good question and a difficult one to answer. So it's going to depend on the kind of organization you work with, right? So some organizations are going to be facilitating when people working 100%, and then they're going to make sure that most events are virtual so that everyone can join. If you are in an organization where most people are in the office and you're the only one working remotely, it's definitely going to be challenging to increase your visibility because of the culture that's out there. But this is a separate case, so I don't believe we're going to have that many, and I might be wrong, but I don't believe we're going to have that many organizations expecting people to be 100% in the office all the time. So what I would say is it's going to take a bit more effort if you're working remotely, but you're going to have to put that extra effort to increase your visibility. And that's in, we've all had online virtual events, social things and things like that. So make sure you attend. I think them being virtual means that you're more likely to say, oh yeah, I'm not going to join. No one is going to see because it's all virtual anyway. So just making sure that you're out there, you see your face, putting your camera on from time to time. So not just being a name on the screen is quite important. And I know it can be quite anxiety causing, but I do believe it's important. And as I said, collaborating with others. So even if you work virtually, if you collaborate with people, they're not going to forget who you are. Most of my clients, I haven't met them in person ever, even when we were in the office, and we still managed to create strong relationships. So I don't believe it will have a big impact. It's just you might have to put a bit more effort.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, personally speaking, I've not from an analytics perspective, but from, working in data, I've had a really successful time working from home, but still keeping that communication going with the team. And it's actually probably, strangely enough, been a better environment than being in the office every day. So I think it's something we need to always add as a topic. It's very relevant, especially, it potentially could reinforce, if you're in the wrong culture and environment, it could reinforce the invisible analyst element of someone's way of working. So Sean has asked, what about the risk on a manager feeling threatened by someone asserting their potential?
Someone what?
Sean's asked the question, what about the risk on a manager feeling threatened by someone asserting their potential?
In their team?
In the team, yeah.
Okay, this is my own opinion and don't judge me for it. I don't think managers should feel threatened by their teams. I do believe that the role of a manager is to elevate their teams and help them grow. So if you feel like a team member is actually getting to this point where they're getting really good, then it means you've done your job well. This is my view. Now, if you feel a bit threatened, it's up to you to see how you react to it. But I would definitely say work with that person, see what their career aspirations are, and really support them. I do believe managers should be supporting their teams. Yeah. Not everybody will agree, but this is where I stand.
Oh, no, 100%. I definitely agree as well too. Andreas has asked the question, if you have a real aversion to public speaking, what do you recommend to do to overcome the first hurdle?
All right, so everybody's situation is going to be different. I would say it's one step at a time. So public speaking is, my partner will tell you, public speaking is a horrible thing, and he works in sales. So for different people, public speaking is going to mean different things, right? But for me, I see it as it might not be standing on a stage talking to people. It can just be speaking in meetings in front of other people. So I would go one step at a time. Start with speaking with one person, maybe presenting your work to a small group of people that you trust, people that you know support you. So that will be your advocates, that will be your managers, your team, and hopefully your team trusts you and you trust your team as well, and you feel comfortable enough to talk about these things. So get comfortable presenting in these kind of small, trusted, secured, how do you say that, cycle of people, and then start stretching and building from that. A good example I have from that was really around networking. So it's not really public speaking, but you still have to go out there, talk to people and be open. Networking is something that used to make me sweat, but literally I would go in the room and I would be drenched. What I started doing is going there early, start talking with one person, and I would just put this objective of every time I go out there, I will talk to one person and I will come back with the contact details for that person. And then I will go maybe in 3 weeks again and then do it with another person. And you would think you're doing networking and you're talking to only one person. And I was thinking, yes, but I was terrified. And then from this one person, I started doing 2 and then 3. And then once people start seeing that you have a group of 3, 4 people chatting, other people will come. And by that time, you will feel more comfortable. So now, obviously, we haven't been doing a lot of in-person networking, but in 2019, when I was going networking, I was feeling fully comfortable walking into the room, chatting with the first person I could see, even though I'm an introvert. And obviously you get back home and you don't have energy anymore, but then you can rebuild your energy. So I see public speaking being the same way, one step at a time. I do feel like talking about what you're going to present with someone you trust first is quite a good one. So I know if I have to talk about something, I will send it to someone before, say, what do you think about that? Is there anything stupid? And then because I trust that person, if they tell me, Karen, yes, this is stupid, I won't take it personally, because I know they don't mean bad, it's constructive feedback. But most of the time they will just go, yes, this is brilliant, go ahead. And I hope this answered the question.
Yeah, I think just to reinforce that too, from my perspective, networking is a massive part of my role. When I first started, I was the same. I was so nervous to speak to people, and you're almost mission focused, where you're just focusing on outcomes and what you need to get from that person, potentially not a transactional way, but more like this is just a business related conversation. But what I found over the years is find a common thread with someone. Don't talk to them about what the business, just have a chat, have a coffee, a beer, a pizza, whatever, and a face-to-face event or over virtual, just get to know someone first as well too, and you'll find that those sort of common threads will, and speaking anecdotally, will eventually help you engage that conversation better and help your confidence as well too. So I'll only speak anecdotally now. Like it's easy, you know what you know, but yeah, it is horrendous when you first start.
I did a couple of years back, I did a training with LinkedIn, and this is what they were saying. They were saying, if you're trying to network on LinkedIn, don't go and tell someone, oh, I'm trying to sell this, or this is why I'm contacting, well, not this is why I'm contacting you, but don't try to force yourself on the person straight away with what you're trying to get from them. Just you have to start by building that relationship before you actually start talking about anything. So it's definitely what you just described as well.
Yeah, I think some processes that I've had as a consultancy I work with, who have part of their whole process was we'll take this person, this candidate to a pub or something, and get to know them outside of an interview environment, out of an office, to see if we can have a conversation. Because if we can have a conversation with these people, they certainly can have a conversation with our clients as well too. So it is important in this environment too for analysts to do their job and be technically focused. But I would say, with my experience working with analysts over the last 10 years, it's crucial that you bridge that gap, you have that conversation, you're able to converse, look at the data, develop that data, and then create a story from that. But creating that story will involve you presenting and being a bit more forward than you might be comfortable with. It's the way it is, but it's definitely a bridge you can get, you can follow over. The next question I've got from an attendee, what they're saying is how to not become an invisible analyst when you are a new graduate with not many achievements or skills under your belt. Does the advice given still apply to new graduates?
Yeah. So in your graduate, I think you are in the best situation possible to change things from the beginning. So when you're already set in your old ways of working, it's really hard to change things. While if you're just joining, this is your moment. This is you trying to become the professional that you want to become. So if from the beginning, I don't want to be an invisible person, I want to be the one showcasing work and then helping the organization progress, this is your chance. So what I would say is, yes, you don't know the ins and outs of the work, but this is something that's going to come with experience. So start by building very strong relationships with people. So within your team, within other teams, ask questions, understand how everybody's working, what challenges they're facing. And you will see if you are, if you find out that someone is struggling with something, you might be able to come up with a solution to their problem through data analytics. So if someone is always copying and pasting from one report to another report, like some very silly things like that, you could potentially write a piece of code that does that for them, or create a new report, and that's you contributing outside of your day-to-day. So really creating these relationships, show what you can do, show that you are willing to do new things, willing to learn. Showing that you're willing to learn is very important, and learn from other people as well. So this is how I would approach it.
Yeah, definitely. Next question from Laura Harris. Laura's asked, do you have any tips on getting a balance between doing extra stuff to progress and your manager thinking you are wasting time on work that is your core role? Good question.
Laura, hopefully your manager will be on board with you working on extra stuff, because when you work on extra stuff, the impact is not only on you, it's also on the company. So I know me doing a podcast had an impact on my company, because I've had people coming to Kali 6 recently. Actually, there is someone who joined one of the team that said, oh, I came across the company because I saw your podcast. And I was thinking, oh, okay. So this is actually supporting the company indirectly. And the fact that you're doing things on the side means that you're learning new skills. And these new skills are things that you can translate into your day-to-day. Obviously, don't spend 80% of your time doing your side projects and then 20% trying to do all your work. But if you prove that you can do your work well, perform to your best, that everybody is happy with your work, you are dependable, no one is chasing you for your work, which is very important. So feeling like people feeling that they can depend on you, and that your work is going to be delivered and it's going to be good quality. No one is going to tell you don't do that on the side. And if they do, it might not be the place for you. I know if someone tells me, unless obviously I'm doing what I'm doing is damaging my work, but if my work is done well, if I'm really helping the team progress and the company achieve their objectives, and I'm doing something on the side, if someone is telling me you can't do this thing on the side, I would be very disappointed, and I don't think that would be an environment for me. You need to make sure that you're working in a culture that works for you, because I'm pretty sure there will be other things that wouldn't work if you have these kind of barriers.
Yeah, I agree as well, Karen. I think it shows that you're interested in your role. You're not just starting, clocking off, forgetting about work. You're doing additional pieces that do benefit yourself as a person, and also the company as well too, either directly or indirectly. So the best thing, I started doing this, and I really was reluctant to do it for years, was get my name out there into the community, the data community, was to write blogs, do posts, comment as much as I could with relevant as relevant as I could as well too. Eventually get into the event space as well too. Obviously you can go even further with podcasts. It doesn't take too much time, and it does, it is inadvertently helping, because people will look at you, like Karen said, they'll look at your name, they'll look where you work, and that'll be an extension of the company and the culture as well too. So hopefully you'll be supported in that capacity.
Yeah.
With extra skills, and if you need to learn a new tool or skill, or you think something's coming up within the data space that could be cutting edge or useful for your team or business, then you should definitely be flagging that up and seeing if you can be taught in that as well too. It's how you approach the situation as well too. So if you can create a business outcome from it, then you're always probably going to get a yes if it's a benefit for the business and the team.
Yeah, I have to say that podcasting does take a bit of time though, but it's all about priorities. It's like everything at work, you need to get your priorities straight so that you can make sure that you can achieve what you want to achieve. But there is going to be some stuff that are less time consuming than podcasting out there.
Yeah, I've not done podcasts yet, so it probably does take a lot of time. Fair one. We one of the guys here, Chris, does one as well too. So hopefully jump on at one point. But Yeah, I've got another question. I mean, keep the questions coming. We've got a few more minutes, everyone. I've got another question for you, Karen, and it's to do with the size of a team. So large teams versus small teams within analytics. I mean, what would your preference be? In my opinion, small teams, I would imagine, have more opportunity for autonomy and highlighting your skills because you're the person they'll probably be looking to as an individual. Larger teams, you have more of a chance to work on larger projects, and you have the benefit of support from a larger analytics team as well, so you can share the workload. But do you think the size of a team matters when trying to influence, or is it more down to the company you work for and the culture?
I think a bit of both. I have to say I've never worked in a big team. The biggest team I've worked in is the one we have right now at Carditic in the UK, and it's 7 of us. So this is the biggest I've had. I feel like it's definitely easier. Well, not easier, but I do feel like it would be easier in a small team to increase your visibility than in a wider team, because that means you have more people to reach out to. So creating these relationships mean that you're going to have to be very selective in who you want to speak to and who you can have on your side, I guess, who you can turn into an advocate and a sponsor. While in a small team, you can just go and then you can see everyone, you know everybody's name. And also as an introvert, I find it a bit easier to go and talk to a small group of people than trying to go around and chat with everybody and then come back and having forgotten everybody's name.
Yeah, no, I get that, and it's one of those things where from a recruitment perspective as well too. We might, when I speak to prospective candidates, they may want more responsibility in a role, and I want to be more independent. A smaller team may be more suitable for them because the focus will be them, but you might be a bit more experienced and comfortable as well too, because things go well, great, but if things go bad, it's the same. It's accountability as well. So I think, I do agree with your answer on that one. What I've found as well too, and I did do a post about this a few months ago, was I really struggle, not publicly speaking, but maybe speaking internally, internal meetings, with management meetings, for instance, too. And I don't know why that is. It's like, these people, so you should be able to express yourself more, but you feel like there's a pressure simmering, and you feel you want to say something, but by the time you get, it's the meeting might be over, and then you're like, I didn't say what I was supposed to say. And I was doing that for years, and I was sitting on, I'm sure, my manager would be rightly saying, he's like, look, you've got a lot to say, share it. But instead of forcing myself, what I did is I sort of influenced the senior team to go, look, well, I do have things to say, but if you could go around and maybe, do a round robin of the team and ask people what they think, I think you get an overall better view of an opinion as well too. And that's really helped me personally by influencing my team for them to come back and help me actually get an opinion, because it's not easy to stick your hand out in front of colleagues and offer an opinion. And it's naturally you're going to be scared they might negatively react to what you say, or they might say, no, that's not a good idea, we need to do this, but that's just part of the discussion. So I mean, would you think that would the right method to do? Have you got any tips there at all in terms of internal meetings? I'm sure you get a lot of them.
Speaking in meetings it's a big one. As I said at the beginning, I used to be the ghost in the meeting, just sat here and then letting people talk, because I was terrified of saying the wrong thing. And me being a perfectionist, I need to have the perfect answer to every question. And my manager will tell you, we had this a big area of development for me was that someone was asking me a question and I would just say, I don't know. And he would tell me, Karen, you can't go and tell people I don't know, because you're an analyst, you're a subject matter expert. You have to help them towards something. And what I've done that helped me in meetings is I've asked our team director to maybe when they have a question, try to direct it to me, so that forces me to answer the question. and to speak in the meeting. And then after that, again, one step at a time, you get more comfortable. So if I spend the whole meeting without talking, he will know and he will say, oh, Karen, what do you think? And then I know that at some point he's going to tell me, Karen, what do you think? Because I asked him to do so. And I can't be like, oh, what are you doing? Because I asked for it. And I would have to say something. Regarding the, I don't know, what I've been doing was trying to come up with the answer that comes, that looks as not as close to the reality as possible, but have this reflection out loud. So saying, I don't have the correct answer at the moment, but I think that, and then let me come back to you. Something that helps in meetings as well is by knowing the agenda beforehand. So I know if I go to a client meeting, I will ask the account managers what's expected from me in that meeting, and I will know, and I will be prepared, and I will be able to take part of the conversation. Otherwise, yeah, not knowing before and me having a tendency to just let people talk, nothing is going to happen.
And what you'll find is that people who like talking will just take over. Not in a negative sense at all. It's just that's how they work, and that's a great positive for the business and the organisation that you work for. But if you don't get that chance, you just need to jump out a little bit more, because you can have sat in meetings where could be 3 people in that meeting, but only 2 of them are really having that conversation. Yeah, every now and again. So yeah, I think we're running out of time, unfortunately. Paul he's linked a website just there called Slido. There's online mechanisms for those who are shy to speaking up to contribute anonymously. So if you want to check the chat box there, Paul's shared that. So thanks, Paul. Yeah, I think we're out of time, unfortunately, everyone. But thank you again for everyone's contribution on this. I really appreciate it. Karen, thanks very much for your time today. Interesting, relevant topic covered, which I think will benefit a lot of the community as well too. Really good tips on focusing on your strengths, solving problems with your manager, so becoming an asset towards their goals as well too. Having a mentor, I think, really important, and pushing yourself out of your comfort zones by presenting, running workshops, speaking at events, podcasts, highlighting your skills and highlighting visibility via newsletters. So thanks again, Karen. Thanks again, everyone, for attending. Please do check out our social media pages for future events in upcoming months, and we'll obviously have this up and running as a recording as well too over the next week or so. So thanks again, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, and it was my pleasure. And feel free to connect on LinkedIn and ask questions if you didn't get to ask your question today.
Thanks all. Bye.